Price is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for July 10th, 2025. Well, I hope everyone had a good restful evening because we're starting today with a little bit of uncertainty as the trade uncertainty continues to expand and grow with the July 10th deadline. And after the bell yesterday, the president said that there will be a 50% tariff applied to Brazil and a 50% tariff being applied to copper by August 1st, and creating that uncertainty here in the market. I think there's been a lot of conversation that the president will not hold August 1st. It's looking more and more like he probably will, and the market may be starting to recognize that valuations could be a little bit high in this situation. Let's take a look at what happened overnight. First off, Asian markets had a really good night overall, mostly higher. We saw stocks with Singapore moving higher. We continue to see lots of good things and a few bad things over there in the market. Hong Kong was up 136 points last night, up 0.57%. Shanghai up 1663, up 0.48%. India was down 120 points, 0.47%, and the Nikkei fell 44 points, 174 points, 0.44%, with Australia lower by 50 points or 0.59%. South Korea was up 49.5 points or 1.58%. So quite a mix in those Asian markets last night. If we take a look at European markets this morning, they are shrugging off all of the tariff situation here at the moment, with the DAX being up 31 points, 0.13%. The FTSE is higher by 94 points or 1.06%, and the CAC is up 50.5 points, up 0.64%. If we take a look at U.S. futures this morning, well, this is where we have a little bit of bearishness this morning. We've got Dow futures at the moment down 78 points. We've got S&P 500 futures down $6.50, and NASDAQ futures down $13.25. Already starting to try and push back up and shake off any of the tariff stuff. We can't seem to hold any bad news in the market. It's just we take it for just a little bit and then zoom right back up. Let's take a look at what we've got going on in our bonds here this morning. Bonds are a little bit higher here today, as you might expect. The 2-year bond coming in at 3.85%. The 10-year is at 4.35%. And that 30-year is at 4.88%. If we take a look at what that's doing with the U.S. dollar, well, the dollar is just slightly lower here this morning. As you can see right now, dollar futures down 14.5 cents. Interestingly enough, we are seeing precious metals respond higher here today on that dollar weakening, which is pretty common. Right now, we've got gold up $14.40 an ounce after it found a little support yesterday and started that bounce back up. Now, if we take a look at silver, silver started higher yesterday. And then pulled back, ended up closing the day just a little bit lower. But this morning we're gapping higher here in silver. Right now up 36 cents at 36, just hit $37 an ounce here this morning. If we take a look at copper, yesterday we saw copper having some negative reactions in the market and then reversing here on, well, at least on the miners, pushing back up here on COPX to hammer. Right now we've got copper up this morning by not quite 11 cents here. So keep an eye on COPX, keep an eye on FCX here in the market. Watch out what we've got going on in the copper as this 50% tariff being tossed around. And then if we look at platinum this morning, platinum is up $30 an ounce, and palladium is also up $30 an ounce here in the pre-market, pushing back higher here this morning. If we take a look at what we have going on here in oil today, oil is a little bit lower. If we take a look at our producers, gapping just a tiny bit lower here, but trying to push back up at the moment on those producers. Oil holders in here is just a little bit lower, with oil coming in down 37 cents an ounce at $68 a barrel. We have Brent hovering in there below $70 a barrel at $69.92. And natural gas catching just a little tiny bounce here today after, well, we'll see if this is some support. We sure pushed down hard yesterday, tried to bounce back and hammer in here, and we've got just a little bit of pushback up, less than a cent though this morning on that. Cryptos here this morning, well, if we take a look at BITO just slightly lower, ever so slightly lower here at the moment. Right now, Bitcoin is showing down a whopping $2.80 a coin, so that's nothing. It doesn't even register on the percentage in the market. And ETHA at the moment up $28.45 an ounce, following through yesterday with a really substantial upside move. We're up 1.04% this morning. And as you might expect, Bitcoin just ticked positive here on the morning, and now up $3.27. Let's take a look at what happened overnight here in the market. But before we do that, everyone, let's settle in and buckle up, and let's get ready for the Thursday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts, see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. We want to shake off that bias, really focus in on the details of these charts. Well, first off, when you take a look at the diamonds, there's no way you can look at this as a bearish chart. We are very, very bullish in the diamonds here, and even this resting pullback in here doesn't hurt any of the technicals in the chart. We do want to recognize the fact that we have been very extended for quite some time, however, and the fact that we're sliding into next week's earnings and all the uncertainty that we have, not a big surprise that we see a little bit of rest coming here in the market. Today, we'll see how the market actually responds to this information, if we shake it off like we have before this week and keep plowing on higher, or if it actually has a bit of an impact here on prices today. But if we take a look, this resting consolidation still is a very, very bullish pattern. And if those buyers were to find any kind of inspiration in here, I can certainly see that possibility that we could stretch back up here, retest yesterday's high, push up in here and see if we can plow on through that area. If we continue to push up, I see every reason to believe that we could be up here testing this recent high, and then we would start that potential breakout for all-time highs here in the diamonds. On the other hand, it's not that difficult to see. If the bears had anything to say, it wouldn't be all that much of a stretch to see us retest these lows in here on the diamonds, and then breaking down below there, pushing down toward this next level of support. If we were to break below that today, it would be big point moves, and that would probably raise some significant fear in the market. Remembering that our moving averages were way stretched away from our technical moving averages in here. So if a pullback were to, if a selling wave were really to begin, the point move down could be substantial. So be prepared for that possibility if that does get going and those bears were to really engage. If we look at our SPY, very, very bullish chart. Again, you can't look at this chart without saying tremendous bullishness in that chart. If I were to take this trend and put it out here, it may suggest that we've got a rather long consolidation in here. I don't think we're going to have a tremendously long consolidation in here because of earnings beginning next week. But that being said, if the bulls have anything to say in here, a retest of yesterday's high does not seem to be at all out of the question. And if we can push through there, then every reason to believe we're up here testing all-time high resistance and possibly blue sky above on the SPY. If the bears were to get anything going, a retest of this support looks like a possibility, and if that were to fail, maybe a retest of Monday's low in here would be the next place to be looking for. And beyond that point, we've got a little price support down in here. We might be coming back toward this trend a little bit, so watch that. Again, technically speaking, we are so stretched away from our moving averages. If a big selling wave were to come in, we do want to pay attention to just how big a point moves is possible if we were to begin that fall. Same thing here on the QQQ. We're very, very stretched away technically in the chart, way elevated above technical moving averages. So we do have to have that caution of that potential. But boy, when you look at the QQQ, there's just nothing in that chart that's bearish. Holding very, very strong yesterday, pushing on up. We came really close. We did at one point in time pop out to a new record high in the QQQ and then settled back. We didn't close at a new record high, but you can see it's a hairbreadth away from that. And if the bulls can find inspiration in here, I think there's every reason to believe we can push right through this, see new record highs in the QQQ, as big tech did a tremendous job yesterday in pushing heavily to the upside. Of course, we did get that whipsaw that I kind of warned that we on this, because our breadth was a little bit weak, but nothing wrong in that chart technically. If we take a look at the bulls or the bears on this, if the bears were to push back, well, I think there's a little support area in here that's now been formed. We tested it yesterday. A pushback into here would not be out of the question if the bears have anything to say. And if we were to break beyond that, then I think testing down in here looks like a pretty good possibility, that retest of Monday's low. Beyond that point, well, this could get a little bit ugly for the Qs, and big point moves are possible if we were to sweep below that level. So just be prepared if that does begin. And then IWM yesterday had a good day. We started off pretty ugly, pushing back strongly, and then just picked right back up. Again, we have this ability right now to just take any bad news and go, yeah, don't care, and push higher. And that will can last a lot longer than you would expect. So with IWM, remember, small caps are going to get some major benefits out of this spending bill that was passed. And I talked about that well before it was passed, to be keeping an eye there on IWM. Still looking really good in here on that chart. We'll want to keep a close eye on it, because if those bulls continue to push, that next area of resistance is right up here in the chart. And I'll show this back over here. It's the underneath side of this little platform in here that would supply that resistance in the chart. Popping through that, then you have that opportunity that we can start moving up through some of these areas of price resistance in IWM. And every reason to believe, the way this is looking, that could be possible. If the bears, however, have anything to say today, a pushback in here, maybe there's a little bit of price support right in there on these highs of these candles and yesterday's open that we would test. Beyond that point, we're probably back down here testing that upside trend and the support level of yesterday's low in IWM. If that were to break, then we start worrying about that possibility that we could move back down in through these levels. Remember, Monday's low was all the way down there in the Russell. So watch that carefully. Not nearly as extended as we see the other indexes, but starting to get that stretch coming into play here in the market. Let's take a look at our VIX. Now, our VIX yesterday just dropped hard, right back down in that big surge and whipsaw yesterday. And then after we had pulled back substantially in the market, we whipsawed it right back up. We took all of the data that was uncertain, and we just said, don't care, it's time to buy. And bought right back up. Now, I would say that we're probably getting a little bit in that situation where we're getting some complacency coming into the market, because we are so zealously bullish that we're really ignoring a lot of things out there that could be potentially damaging to the market. That can continue a lot longer than anyone can expect. Remember that old statement, markets can remain irrational longer than anyone can fight them, can maintain their liquidity fighting that directional move. But that being said, if the bulls can continue that move, breaking below that area price support right there, I would suggest we come right down into this area. We start moving down below that 15 handles here below 16 handles in the VIX, pushing that down toward 15. So watch that carefully here in the market. If the bears were to have anything to say, well, once again, pushing back up, we could start pushing and testing this resistance here in the chart. And you can saw on Monday that big push to the upside on Monday. Maybe we're back up here in a good solid push from the bears. So just hold on to your seat, because we could experience some volatility in the days ahead with all this uncertainty. Let's take a look at our T20s. Our T21-22 indicator, that was all over the map yesterday. We opened up and pushed higher. We were nearly in the bearish reversal zone at one point in time, and then we started to sell, and we turned this around, and we were actually turned lower here. And then really in the last hour and a half, we push that all the way back up here, leaving kind of a hooking pattern here in the chart. So we'll want to watch that carefully. Oftentimes that can lead to more downside. But if the bulls find inspiration, we certainly have upside opportunity for them in that little bit of selling that we've had. We've opened the door before we get back up there into that bearish reversal zone. If the bears, however, have anything to say, well, certainly we've got a lot of downside opportunity for them because we have just been so relentlessly bullish in the market. So once again, we got to be prepared for that possibility that sentiment could shift on all of this data coming out and tariff stuff that I suspect will impact the market. Even though we don't want to recognize it or think that it's not going to happen, I think there will be some potential impacts on this. If we take a look at our T2108, our T2108 indicator as well, percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average, a little tiny bit higher by the end of the day, trying to push back up. We're kind of stuck here between a range near 70 and 60, but there is nothing bearish in this chart, even with the data that we had yesterday and that uncertainty, more stocks, more countries getting their tariff warning notice going out. Well, we just shook it off and said, don't care, we want to buy stock, particularly big tech. So watch that carefully here. This could go either direction. If those bulls have inspiration, pushing back up toward 70, bears have inspiration, pushing down toward 60 and breaking that upside trend. Same is going to be the case here in T2107, percentage of stocks above that 200-day moving average. You can see we've been trying pretty hard to break through this area around 45% in the chart. If we can, we could easily move up there toward 50%. At the same time, we want to watch this carefully. If the bears, you can see we left that little hook up here yesterday, that possibility, if the bears were to have anything to say, I think pressing down into some of this area, a price support in here looks like a possibility. So 40% or below. So watch that carefully. Now that would engage this upside trend. So no particular worries there, just a little bit of rest in the market if that were to occur. And our T2101 is really where I was really warning yesterday during the morning hours. Be careful, everyone. Don't chase the market. Do not chase this to the upside because our breadth was declining, so we were racing to the upside while the breadth was pulling back, and sure enough, we ended up whipsawing that market yesterday. So watch this carefully in the breadth. If we continue to see that breadth sink away and we continue to try and press this bullishness in the market, that sets up that dangerous situation here in the market where a lot of folks could get trapped on the wrong side of the market here. So be careful in this market and keep an eye on breadth. Now, if we take a look at our economic calendar here for today, our economic calendar, well, it's one of our busier days here with data and mostly on the earnings side here today. Today we're going to get those jobless claims numbers. They are expecting 238,000, a little bit of increase over the last time, but no particular worries there if we come in like that. I don't think the market's going to have any a negative reaction to that number if it comes in like that. So keep an eye on that. We've got some Fed speak in here, natural gas report, several bond auctions, with the 30-year being probably the most notable. Some more Fed speak, Treasury buyback, more Fed speak, and then that Fed balance sheet after the close of the day. Remember, as you're planning into Friday, we got a Baker Hughes rig count and the Treasury statement in there toward the end of the day. So keep an eye on that. Very light day here on the economic calendar on Friday. If we take a look at our earnings calendar, however, well, today we've got a little bit of that third quarter earnings starting to kick off here. Some of those are very notable here for today, and we're going to start off with Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines reporting today, this morning, getting a nice push here in the pre-market, looking good on that earnings report. So watch that carefully, really stretching up through here, through some resistance on that big pop. We're going to hear from ConAgra here today. Not so much activity in there. I don't think it's reported yet, but ConAgra obviously been in quite a downtrend. Keep an eye on that report. We've got Helen of Troy here today. Obviously, that's going south this morning, pushing lower. Watch that carefully, breaking down through support here. And SMPL on that notable list here this morning. Now, there are some other reports in here that don't fit that notable, like BYRN will be reporting today, kind of low on the volume in here, so it doesn't make that trade, make that list. And NTIC also reporting this morning, so watch that carefully. Now this afternoon, we've got some notables here as well. We're going to hear from Levi Strauss. Keep an eye on Levi. That's been pressing pretty solidly to the upside here heading into that earnings report. Watch that carefully here today. We've got PriceSmart that will be reporting. That's putting in that lower high in here, maybe a little concern going into the earnings on that one. And then we've got WD-40. Also, not WD, I typed in WD-40 when I said it. WDFC is the ticker, so keep an eye on that for later on today. There are no notables at all on Friday, both in the morning or afternoon, so keep that in mind as we head toward next week and the beginning of those big bank reports. Let's take a peek and see what we've got going on here in some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you can do me that favor, that would be click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. Thank you so much for everyone who takes the time to do that. I've got a pretty busy day today, so I'll do my best at answering those comments today. But thank you so much for everyone who does do that. Also, just a real quick reminder, there will be a link below the title of the video that can get you over if you want to take a look at what we've got going on here in RWO. Got some really great profits going on here, even with this volatility. And doing pretty well in trade. So watch this. If you have an interest in learning how we do that, come on over for $7 for a full 30 days. I don't know where you're going to get a better deal than that. Let's take a look at some of these stocks setting up. Remember, everyone, they're not recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very, very careful in this market, and remember that anything is possible with all of the news and uncertainty that we continue to see here boiling around. So make sure you're prepared and carefully planning all of your trades here. First off, as you can see, I've had GLW in here for quite some time. Had an alert down in here and just continue to re-alert this to the upside. GLW resting back. Now remember, GLW supplies all of the glass for all of these devices, iPads and iPhones, and all of the glass for those kind of techie devices, and still holding in a bullish pattern. And we've been seeing Apple and things like that moving to the upside. So every reason to believe this could continue on through to the upside, just resting in a consolidation there. So watch that closely on GLW. Ulta Beauty broke out of this downtrend in here. Nice little rest after breaking out of that downtrend. We tried to pop in there and then just rested back here recently, coming right back into this upside trend. If we can get a little bullish action coming in here, I think there's every reason to believe that could push on higher. When we look at a lot of our big bank reports are coming up next week, but a lot of our big banks have pulled back here just recently, just resting back. But I think that can set up that next opportunity to the upside on those earnings reports. So watch that carefully here on some of those. Sometimes we get that movement going before the earnings begin. So watch carefully for that opportunity, just that anticipation of earnings. Take a look at WDC. WDC has been a whopper of a trade. Initial alert down in here, and that thing is just run to the upside. You can watch this closely. Every reason to believe if we get some bullishness coming in the market, that could stretch on higher here. If you take a look at Seagate, Seagate has done the same thing. Just this nice stretch to the upside. A little bit more bearishness coming in, but if we can get that bullish push in here, I think there's every reason to believe that could push on higher as well. Keep an eye on those. Take a look at Starbucks in here. Now, I have a bias in here. We're holding a position in Starbucks. Got a nice little profit in it. Kind of a pop and drop there yesterday on Starbucks, but I'm thinking about this for a longer term position, just in that potential turnaround. But of course, if we get a big shot of bearishness that comes into the market, it would negatively affect this. But if we can stay holding in this upside trend, holding above some of that resistance, this big downtrend break that we have going on here in Starbucks, watch carefully in here. Any additional bullishness in the market could push us on up. We've got some time that we could wait out here to trend, so no particular rush on there, but keep an eye on that. Take a look at Boeing. Boeing from the alert in here, just really stretching in yesterday. Great stretch here, pushing on higher. Every reason to believe that could continue to go. We saw Caterpillar having a nice little push up yesterday. Things like John Deere have been struggling here just a little bit, but Cummins really bounced back yesterday. Big hammer in here yesterday, a follow through to the upside, and maybe that can break through that resistance. So watch some of that heavy equipment. Salesforce in here, beautiful chart, just absolutely gorgeous. Just a little resting pattern in here. If we can get some bullishness coming in the market, I think there's every reason to believe that could push on through to the upside. Keep an eye on that. There are so many bullish stocks in the tech sector. There are a dime a dozen. Looking out here at Micron, still holding in this nice little resting pattern. Look for that potential push through on that. Although Amazon had a little bit of rest yesterday, boy, that's still setting up in a very bullish pattern and may soon start stretching on up here towards some resistance levels. Keeping in mind, a lot will depend on how the sales go here in Prime Day, that's now 4 days long, but watch that closely on Amazon. AMD in a very, very bullish pattern setup. I'd keep an eye on that for some upside potential. You might want to keep an eye on things like FedEx holding in bullish patterns and could soon stretch to the upside, along with UPS. If the sales in Amazon and every other company out there that's got sales running at the same time in here, There'll be a lot of shipping coming into play, so keep an eye on some of those shippers out there. Could start seeing some good news in them as well. So I'm running out of time here. Hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Be careful, be safe. Don't be surprised to see a little bit of volatility on this uncertainty, even though that we are working our very best to try and say none of this matters. We just want to buy stock. So be prepared for that possibility that if the bears do come in, the move could be substantial because we're so stretched away in our indexes. So have a plan to protect yourself. Stay with the trend as long as the trend continues, but have a plan to protect yourself. I want to wish you all the very best, and I'll see you right back here bright and early Friday morning. Have a great day, everyone.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.